Reactive training systems.
The most fundamental period of training in any training program is really the microcycle, and even beyond that into the training session. So we're talking about like really small periods of training here, training sessions, and then microcycles are typically training weeks, but you can break them up into smaller chunks than that. You know, I've seen people use microcycles that happen at a frequency of 2 microcycles per week. You know, maybe you're on a 3-day microcycle or something like that. Anyway, the point is that these very small segments of training are really the building blocks of all of the rest of your training. The larger training cycles get a lot of press, you know, different periodization models, block periodization, linear periodization, like all these different things that happen over the course of a mesocycle or a macrocycle, longer periods of time. They get a lot more press, and they're a lot cooler when we talk about, you know, what different potential training effects are and things like that. But the problem is that if it's not placed on a solid foundation of well-planned and well-executed microcycles and training sessions, then it really doesn't matter anyway. And I suppose that probably sounds pretty obvious, but if it's true that training sessions and microcycles are the most important components of our training, then how come we pay such little attention to them in a general sense? Before I started recording this, I was kind of sitting down thinking about what I wanted you to take away from it. You know, what's the major lesson here? What is it that I want you to learn from this? And it's just this, that if the training session and the training microcycle are the most important, it's the foundation that all the rest of the training is built on top of. What's the key thing, you know? And I think the key thing is something that a lot of people maybe know about consciously. You know, like if you were to ask them, hey, you know, do you know about the importance of microcycles and training sessions, things like that? They might be able to tell you that they do, but when it comes down to it, they don't place the right importance on it. And how can you tell this? How can you see this? Well, you can see this in, you know, misapplication of training load. That's a big one. You know, people that apply training loads to lifters that are inappropriate for their level. So you see poor recovery, or not even really just poor recovery, just an inability for the athlete to thrive on that program. And I mean, I'll be the first to claim that I've done this before, you know, and I like to think that I'm better at it now, but I've had athletes on programs before where, you know, they're getting beat up and they're not making progress as well as either one of us would like, but they're getting a little bit stronger here and there, but they always feel like crap. And you think it's all right, they're about to make the adaptation, they're just about ready to hang in there, and they just kind of never do. And then, you know, sometimes it gets a little better, sometimes it gets a little worse, but it's a misapplication of training load for that lifter. The training load is inappropriate for their abilities, and again, this is something that sounds obvious when you say it. If you were to ask someone, hey, do you think that you should apply the appropriate level of volume for each individual lifter? Of course, the answer is yes, but in practice, it's much harder. So then when you factor in the changing abilities of the athlete, the changing life situations of the athlete, it can get very complicated to just do a simple thing like have an appropriate training load. This is also a reason why at Reactive Training Systems we espouse auto-regulatory principles so much, is because there are a lot of times where it's just a bit too labor intensive to manipulate the training volume on a day-to-day basis. You know, even for me myself, like I'm writing and conducting my own training, I don't have time to properly analyze my current adaptive state and all that. before every single training session. That training sessions happen a lot, and there's just no time for all of that sort of thing. So autoregulatory mechanisms kick in, and they adapt the training to fit the needs of the athlete. This is another reason why autoregulation is important. And the training session, the microcycle, is a perfect place for those adaptations to occur. Now, the assessment period is maybe different, and we're getting into a conversation on athlete monitoring now, but the assessment period could and probably should be longer, up to a month or more. So if you're looking at heart rate variability or track scores or anything like that, you're going to be looking at more long-term data. So there's a ton of stuff to talk about when it comes to well-developed and well-executed microcycles. And in fact, we're putting together a 10-lesson series on it called Microcycles. We're teaching this in RTS Classroom. If it's something that you'd like to learn about, if you're a coach or if you're coaching yourself, it's something that you owe it to yourself to get better at. And you can head over to the RTS store. It's store.reactivetrainingsystems.com. Click on Classroom Videos. You can read more about the class that we're offering and see how this can benefit you in writing your own training and writing training for your lifters, whatever you've got going on. I think it's going to be a really good class that focuses on these bedrock principles. It's stuff that you might think but when it comes to application, tactics and techniques for applying this to real training programs and real athletes and getting real results from that, it's not always so easy to see. So there's a lot of value to this. So I hope that you head over and check that out. And if not, make sure that you're just taking care of your microcycles and your training sessions, putting those foundational training periods into place appropriately. Thanks everyone for watching. As always, remember to take what's there, build some momentum. We'll see you next time.
Reactive Training Systems.